This will serve as an introduction to percent yield. Practice problems for percent yield will be found in later videos. So here we have percent yield. What that means is it's asking how much of the possible amount of a product was actually made. So percent yield equals the actual yield divided by the theoretical yield. And yield essentially is just like meaning produced. So what percent of the product was actually produced? So you would take the actual amount produced divided by the theoretical amount produced. Here's an example right here to kind of introduce this concept of percent yield. So in a reaction of hydrogen gas, H2, plus oxygen gas, O2, I predict that 28 grams of water will be formed. My prediction, however much you think will be formed, that is your theoretical yield. That is in ideal conditions, how much of a given product do you think, or does a scientist think, or whoever's running the experiment, how much do they think will be formed? That is the theoretical yield, and that's what would happen in ideal conditions. So in ideal conditions for this problem, 28 grams of water will be formed. After the reaction, I react my hydrogen and my oxygen. I find that 21 grams of water actually formed. So obviously conditions were not ideal because I thought 28 grams would form, but it turns out 21 grams actually formed. So my actual yield was 21 grams. So then how would I solve for my percent yield? Well, if we look up here at the formula that I gave you, you take the actual yield, how much was actually formed, divided by what you thought would form, or what the person running the experiment thought would form. So in this situation, you would take your actual yield, which is 21 grams, because that's how much actually formed, 21 grams of water, H2O, and you would divide that by 28 grams of H2O, because that's how much you thought would form. That's how much the theoretical yield was. You thought ideal conditions, 28 grams will be formed, but 21 grams actually formed. So you just use this equation right here, actual yield, 21 grams, how much actually formed, divided by the theoretical yield. So you got 21, and you divide that by 28, and you end up with 0.75. So is that all you do? No, the one thing you can do to finish this off is you take whatever decimal point you get, because typically you will get a decimal, and you'll multiply that by 100, and that will give you your percent yield. So if we take 0.75 multiplied by 100, that'll give us 75% yield. So in this situation, with my theoretical yield of 28 grams, my actual yield, how much actually formed, of 21 grams, I did 21 divided by 28 equals 0.75, multiplied that by 100, and I found out that in this experiment with hydrogen and oxygen forming water, I had a 75% yield. That's how much, 75% of how much I thought could form actually did form. So that right there would be my final answer for my percent yield. So that is percent yield, a brief introduction. We'll have some practice problems in later videos.